Welcome to the Bracky Factory and welcome to the latest episode of the big American LaFrance V12 engine project. Now, if you saw the last episode, you'll have seen that I use a great deal of elbow grease, taking off the cylinder heads and pushing them back on again. So now all I need to do is put the inlet manifold, exhaust manifold on, put the carbs on, sort out the ignition system, and then it's all ready to go. I mean, I know it's a V12, but how hard can it possibly be? Let's find out. So I'm going to start off by putting the cover back on here. Amazingly, throughout the entire time of working on this engine, nothing has fallen down there, which is good because it goes all the way down to the sump. And I don't want to be taking the sump off again. Just getting the engine up high enough to take the sump off is another nightmare. So I'm going to put this back on. These sort of end blocks I've already cleaned up and put back in. They're just like a little connecting piece, really. So let's stick that top bit back on. So here's the top cover. Spent a bit of time cleaning it up. It'd be a shame to put it on all mucky. It did have like a string seal that went all the way around there. I will reinstate the string seal, but not quite yet. First thing I want to do is just screw it down, and I can focus on the other areas. Right, be sod's law now, wouldn't it, that something falls down that hole. So what I'll do is just put a bit of tape over there. No, it can't. Right, next up is the manifold. So I'll just drop a couple of manifolds on here and show what's going on. So this is the exhaust manifold. And this is the inlet manifold. Oh, wrong place. Inlet manifold. Now you can see here that they are normally bolted together. And the reason they're bolted together is to warm up the inlet manifold from the exhaust so that your inlet doesn't get iced up, which can happen even if it's not below freezing because of the cooling effect of the vaporization of the fuel. It works basically the same as a fridge. But I'm not going to bolt them together because I'm going to have different gaskets. So this is what one of the gaskets looked like, which is a bit manky. And then you've got another gasket which goes like that. That's an inlet, that's an inlet, and that's an inlet. Now I don't have any new gaskets, and I'm not going to use any new gaskets for now. Again, they come from America, it's quite expensive. So what I'm going to do is, well, I've already done it, is make new gaskets for the inlets only. So that's that one, and that one, and have no gaskets for the exhaust because it doesn't really matter. I need gaskets on the inlet because I need a seal, a good seal. If there's no good seal, then it'll suck air in, run too lean, it won't work properly. So because the two manifolds are slightly different heights, I can't bolt them together. And anyway, they're all a bit bent and knackered, and the other one's been welded up. So I'm going to whip these off again and put the gaskets on. Right, these are my gaskets. So right 3, right 2, wrong place. No wonder we're gone. Okay, so just going to use some Hylamore now and seal these gaskets down. Right, quite happy with that. So now I can offer up the exhaust manifold. This one goes on first. Obviously I had to make sure that these gaskets didn't stick underneath this, otherwise it would have rocked, but that sits now quite nice and flat, well, very nice and flat. Right, some sealer on these. Plenty on there, possibly too much, but better safe than sorry. And drop these ones down like that. Right, so here a whole load of nuts and bolts and washers. These are the manifold bolts, nuts, and they're actually made out of brass, and every single one I've run through a tap and then wire brushed and cleaned them all up, cleaned the threads out. You've got some big washers here, and you've got some even bigger washers here, and these, the really big ones, are used to clamp down the pairs, and the smaller ones clamp down here. So put a bit of oil on all of these because I don't want them to go rusty. I cleaned all these up as well, took me ages. So now I'm just going to stick these all on here and do it all up. Decided to treat it to some new spring washers. What the hell? It's Christmas. Some of these are a bit chewed. When I took it off, it was an absolute nightmare to get off, and they're slightly chewed up. Look, so I might have to dress that one. Right, that's one fitted on. That went on quite easily and nicely, so let's do the other one. So both manifolds now on. Some of these nuts did take quite a lot of fettling, but anyway, they're all now fettled. What I didn't also mention is that all of these studs I cleaned using this. It's actually a lathe attachment, and I just used it as a handle and just wound down and cleaned all the threads. So nothing had to be forced. Everything went on quite smoothly and easily. So now, of course, we need to turn our attention to the carbs. And I got to confess, I'm starting to get a bit excited now. Right, so I've plonked the carbs on, and there's a few things I have to do. Firstly, I need to seal this taper fitting up. This is NPT. I think that's an 1/8. That's a quarter NPT. That's a half NPT, and I need to sort those out. It did feed off some kind of vacuum advance somewhere, but I'm blanking that off. I need to fit the rebuild kit to these carbs. When I got them, they were incredibly grotty, and I spent ages getting them to where they are now, but I need to fit some kits. There's a fuel rail that was connecting here. I'm probably going to ditch the fuel rail and just have these, and just have a couple of tubes and a Y piece, and probably hang a little reservoir above the engine when I start it, or try to start it. And I also need to synchronise this this throttle linkage. One there, and what I do have all of this gubbins that came with the engine. It's obviously off the original fire engine. It's all the throttle linkage. It obviously was mounted somewhere out here, but I'm probably going to try and sort of mount this bar off here somewhere, maybe pick up off these bolts here, and have some kind of arrangement such that I can sort of rum rum or boom boom just here. Well, hopefully it'll make that noise. So this all needs cleaning up, and we'll see what we can do with this lot. Right, so I've cleaned up this bar. It's quite nice. I could do with a little bit more cleaning. Bit of rust there still, but it's clean enough to work with. I've also got these 4 linkages, which are quite nice. It's got these are quite good actually. Quite like those. So I'm going to use this lot, and what I'm thinking is stick this just there. And as you can see, it's going to go backwards and forwards and have links that run forward to these throttles like that. So, but the whole thing, I'm going to get the links are going to go from these middle holes, so the whole thing needs to go up and sideways. So I need to, and out a bit. So I need to make a bracket which positions it in space there. So it means I get to make a bracket. And this will actually be the first brackets that I make for this engine, unbelievably. And I got a bit of cardboard, cut it out, and it's going to look something like this. And they're both going to be the same because the center distances is pretty much the same as these mounting plates. Are they? Yeah, as near as damn it, as the saying goes. So where's it gone? So yeah, I'll make 2 of these, and may put in gussets. I'll do like a good gusset in there to make it nice and firm. I'll probably make that 3mm steel. So get cracking with that, I think. So this is how the bracket starts. Masking tape onto some steel, draw around the template, cut with a scalpel and peel it all off, and then when it's cut out it looks like that. So I'll cut the other one out and then we can start drilling some holes. Right, back over at the bench, and I just need to mark up these now. They're handed, so I'm going to have a left and a right. So this is the left one, which is actually the right bank, just to confuse matters. And this is the one that's going to have the big hole in the middle. This is the other one. Sort of centralise it on there. Bugger moved. Like that. That's cool. Right, this is going to have a dirty big hole in the middle. This big hole in the middle is the sort of drain tap, which I think is a large NPT fitting, so you can bleed the heads. That's going to have a big one in the middle. That's the center point there. So what I'm also going to do is drill holes in here, but I'm also going to on the reverse side, I'm going to put an angle grind slot 1.5mm deep, so I can fold this over nice and accurately, and a nice tight radius, and then I'm going to run a TIG bead along the edge of it to strengthen it. So, and I may, depending on if it all works, I may TIG in some fillets on this side and this side just to make it super strong. So let's drill some holes. So back over the bench, we've got 2 plates, and you'll see there's a slot cut in the back, and that's 1.5mm. So I'm just going to bend these 2 over now, and then we can offer it up to the engine. Right, they're pretty good. Let's offer it up to the engine. So this is my crossbar, and yeah, I think that's going to work. Running a bit short on UNF bolts, get some more bolts, and I think what I will do is, these are quite chunky, but I think what I'm going to do is weld some gussets in here as well, just to make them mega stiff. Don't want the whole thing's vibrating, because obviously then it'll be trying to vibrate the throttles open. So yeah, let's weld those up. So back at the bench, and they're all welded up, and that went all right. These are okay, not my finest work, but definitely fit for purpose. So I think without further ado, we'll try and stick it all on the engine and see if it works. So here it is, all fitted to the engine. I cleaned up these levers a bit more. They're actually made out of bronze, I think. So they're very nice. They've got some kind of plating on them, made out of bronze. I've ordered a few of the correct fasteners. These aren't quite long enough. I need some. These are 3/8 UNF, more bolts. But it's all there. It's all there, bar the fiddling and fettling. These little rod ends. These are very nice. These have come up quite nicely. Don't know whether they're nickel or don't know what. But anyway, they're nice. So that's all good. Now, really, what I should do next is do the carb kits, but it's a very finite job. So I think what I'll do instead is I'll turn my attention to the ignition. Of course, all I have in terms of ignition at the moment is a distributor, but I'd already cleaned that up, so that's looking good. So now what I think I'm going to do is try and set the whole thing up, which is a bit of a Rubik's Cube because it's, you know, quite complicated. But my starting point, I think, is to clean up this face, get myself some decent timing marks, a top dead center for the other bank, which is 45 degrees away, a 6 degrees before top dead center, and get all those timing marks on so I can then dial in the distributor and get these two sets of points set up. Anyway, let's crack on with that. Sometime later, and the flywheel has cleaned up quite nicely. I spared you the extensive use of elbow grease, but these are all the tools of the trade, all manner of wire brushes, Dremels, all sorts of stuff. Cleaned up nicely. And also, if we look down inside here, can we see that? Can we see it? You probably see any new specs. Anyway, you'll have to take my word for it. In there, it says TDC 16R. And what that means, it's top dead center for cylinders 1 and 6 on the right bank, which before I had the wrong way around. I've now corrected that. You might wonder, why on earth would I need to write left and right on there? ASNAT, I'm notorious for getting them mixed up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wind the crank forwards, which is that way by 45 degrees. So 45 degrees is approximately that, I'd say. And if we go back and have a look inside here, what we can see is says in there 16L TDC, which is obviously top dead center on this bank. So that's all very good, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to transpose all that information to the perimeter of here so I can see it at a glance. It's all very well having these marks, but you can only see the mark when it's actually visible. You don't know where it is otherwise, so I'm going to put some tape on here, mark it all up, mark TDC for left and right, mark where 6 degrees before TDC is, and then I can have a crack at setting up the distributor. Right, now we have our timing marks. So we've got TDC right 6 degrees BTDC before top dead center, and top dead center left. Now that distance between there and there is 20 millimeters, and that's how I worked out 60 degrees. 6 degrees. I know the width from there to there. I can use pi times d to get the complete circumference, divide the circumference by 360, multiply it by 6, and it gives me 2 centimeters, actually 2.1. But accurate enough for this. So now let's look at the dizzy. Right, over the distributor, and I have set the crankshaft for 6 degrees before top dead center for the right bank, because I want to set up the ignition timing for the first cylinder on the right bank. Now there are two top dead centres. There's a right one and the wrong one, and the right one is when both of these valves, inlet and exhaust valves, are shut, because that is when we're going to get the combustion stroke. So back at the distributor, I've got two sets of points here. One set of points for each bank. This is the set of points for the right bank. This is a set of points for the left bank. This set of points is attached to the distributor body. And this set of points is attached to a plate, which is attached to the distributor body. And this plate can move with respect to the body, and we're going to use that in a second. But the first thing we're going to do is set up the timing for this set of points. And the point we're after is the point at which the points open. Okay, so we can see as the lobe goes round, it opens and closes the points. So if we the rotor arm moves around clockwise, so if we move the body backwards, you can probably see the points open there. Right, now I can see that they open, but I would like the precise point at which they open, so that I can lock it in place. So what I'm going to do is use a multimeter to help me. So I've now put my multimeter across the points, basically, and with the points open, there is no noise. I've got a continuity siren on it, alarm on it, or whatever you want to call it. And when the points are open, no noise. When the points are closed, there's a noise. So if I move the body backwards anti-clockwise very slowly, when the noise stops, the points have opened. So this is the place, this is the point at which, keep on saying the word point, don't I? This is the moment where the points open, and I need to lock this now using this little clamp just here, and I can move on to the other set of points. Right, now looking at the other set of points, I've wound the crank forwards by 45 degrees, and it's now 6 degrees before top dead center for the left bank. So I'm interested in these points. Now I can adjust these points relative to the base plate with this cam here. So they're obviously open at the moment. That's close them, wind them back. That's what we're interested in. So lock them up now, tighten them up, and that's my points set the other side. Fantastic. So what I now need to do is put the rotor arm back on. Let's put the rotor arm back on, and I need to work out which port on the distributor cap corresponds to which cylinder and which set of points. So let's do that next. So what I've now done, I've wound the crank back to 6 degrees before top dead center on the right bank. So this is the position that the arm's in when I want to get a spark on number one. So I've marked the end of the arm on this side. I've marked the end of the arm on this side where it coincides with the edge. I've got my cap, so I'm going to stick my cap on like that, and we can see that that lines up with here, and that one doesn't. So what that tells me is that this end of the rotor arm is the firing end. So this is what's giving me the spark, and this pickup point corresponds to this on here. So I'm going to have my coil connected to that and that, HT lead to that, and earth wire to that. So that's enough information to wire it up. So what I will do now, just to double check, is I'll wind forward by 45 degrees, and in theory this end of the arm should line up with the HT output on the cap just there. So let's just do that now. So I've wound it forward 45 degrees, and I've marked on here where that now lines up with that. So I stick my cap on, there we go. Lo and behold, it lines up with this. So I know that this one is number 1 there, and not quite opposite, and then across one, that one is the second one. So this is the firing order there. Right bank 1, left bank number 6. So this is number 6 on the left bank. Confused? You ought to be. It is quite confusing. So this means I can now label up this cap with all of the firing order and these two, such that when I get the HD leads, which are in the post, I can just connect the dots. So let's label that up now. So here it is, all labelled up, and I must admit I'm a sucker for a label maker. Been invaded by a cat. Come to help out. What are you doing? Helping. Anyway, back to the distributor. This is all labelled up now. All I need to do is obviously connect up the HD leads to the plugs and connect up the coils. So I think the next job is I'm going to rig up the coils, supply to the coils some kind of ignition switch. Get down, boy. Some kind of ignition switch. Maybe a little dash up there somewhere, I'm not sure. Coils down here somewhere, I'm not sure. While I wait for the HT leads to turn up. So let's build all this stuff next. So a few more mods done, and you can see that the scaffold plank is now gone, because it's now the sump is not sitting on the plank anymore. That's why it was there. I've actually put these in fact they've been in for a little while. You may have spotted them. So I didn't really want to run the engine or attempt to run the engine sitting on the sump, because it's a fairly, I mean, it's made out of aluminium. It's quite solid, but I'd sooner not start the engine on it. Anyway, made this, got 2 coils. Obviously it has 4 coils ultimately. Got the starter solenoid. I've also made this little, this is the dashboard. Starter button, ignition switch. Of course, up is on, so I can, in a panic, I can turn it off. So now let's wire it all up. So I've wired up the solenoid to the switch up there, and it requires a little earth strap. So I've got this little earth strap that goes from there to there. So time to wire up the ignition. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a positive feed from the starter solenoid up to the ignition switch. And now I'll take another positive feed from the ignition switch down to the coil. And now take a positive feed from that coil to the other coil, which is the positive terminals on both of them. So they've now got a 12 volt feed, which is switched. And then from the negative on coil for the right bank, we go up to the distributor and stick it on the right terminal. Stick it up inside there for the let's just nip that up. That's the earth for the right coil, and finally the same for the left coil. Stick that up, and that goes up underneath here like that. Right, so it's all wired up, and I've kind of neatened it up a little bit with a few cable ties. Now I do have all the old HD leads, but they are completely knackered. They've been gnawed by mice and they're all snapped and chopped. But I do have 2 that might just be usable. This is that. Yum yum yum, said the mouse. So what I'll do is I'll just use these 2, connect the coil, right coil to right side, and right coil to there, and then I'll connect R1 to this, and we'll give it a little test, shall we? Right, we've got the right coil connected to the right side feed, the distributor cap. That goes to the plug. So if I switch on, let's have a look at that. I don't know whether you saw it, but it is sparking. So we're now connected to the other coil, this time to the center, and we've got it going from one of the L ports, RLR, off to the plug again. So let's do it again. Lights out, action. Yep, sparking. So that's the ignition system set up. I'm getting sparks out both sides. So I've potentially got 12 sparks, and hopefully I've got all the sparks in all the right order. So now time for the HT leads. So HT leads now all set up. I used a whopping 24 meters of HT lead to do this. I managed to salvage the existing plug caps, these. Obviously there were 24, I think 3 were smashed, but I obviously got 12. And I used one of these crimping tools, which is quite cool, and these little crimps to go in the distributor. So what I might do is I might individually test every spark plug, but I've got no reason to think it won't work. So that just means one more thing. Time to sort out the carbs. So finally the carbs have been fitted. They are sealed on, sealed down with a gasket, choke connectors fitted, throttle linkage fitted and working, and you won't be surprised to find out that it wasn't a 5-minute job. In actual fact, it was quite a long job, and lots of elbow grease was used. So what I've actually done is create an entirely separate video all about this, which is under my carbs section. If you want to see that, go and check it out. So that's it, done, finished, sorted, nothing left to do before I try and start it. So if you want to see that, hit subscribe, because the next episode is going to be entirely dedicated to starting this big engine, and also maybe the cat. So if you like that, please hit like. If you've got any comments, please comment. I try to respond to all of them. Don't forget, I've got the merch shop for this bracket factory stuff, which is awesome, designed by Stefan Marjoram. But anyway, for now, thanks for watching.